Hi, welcome to Close to Home Saturday Sampler. This month's November's Saturday Sampler is a paper piecing block, and we're going to go right to the cutting instructions. We've done paper piecing in the past. Last year we did paper piecing. It's quite fun. It's quite exact. I think you're going to enjoy it. The light, you will have two pieces of light. One is approximately 21 by 6, so you're going to keep it 6 inches, and then you're going to cut 8 2.5-inch rectangles. The other light gray that you're going to be using is about 17 by 13. You're going to cut 2 rows of 6, and each of those is going to be cut into a 4-inch rectangle 6 by 4. Pretty easy on the medium. They're all 4 blocks at 5.5 and cut on the diagonal just once. And then the last one is the dark. These are tiny little rectangles. Leave the strip, it's about 7 inches wide. Just leave it the width it is, and subcut that strip into 8 1.5-inch rectangles. All right, so here are some of the tools that you're going to be needing this month. We're going to be working with the Carol Dokes Foundation paper. I'm going to give you a pattern, and you will make 4 copies on the Carol Dokes Foundation paper. It's great to rip away. It doesn't have the ink rub off on your fabric. It's very absorbent. So we're going to take 4 sheets of the Carol Dokes, and you're going to make the 4 copies. When you do make the copies, make the first copy on regular paper, and then double check the size that it is a 6-inch on the edges, and I will show you that. Okay. You will also need an add a quarter ruler. The add a quarter plus ruler is the yellow ruler, and it has a 12-inch and a 6-inch if you're doing smaller paper piecing pieces. You can obviously use the 6-inch, but it is nice and wide. It comes wider than it used to in the past, and it really does help hold down your paper while you trim. One more thing you're going to need is glue, water-soluble fabric glue. We carry Roxanne's glue. This is in a little dabber, and this is by the drops. Both are excellent choices, but we also have a glue stick, okay? And I will be using the glue stick today. The 8.5 by 12.5, of course, is very helpful. The other things you're going to need are a piece of cardstock. I'm using a pattern. It's very solid, has a nice, easy, straight edge to use, and I will be using this to show you, and of course pins. Okay. So I have already made my copies on the Carol Dokes paper. These 4 copies are all in the same spot. As you can see, they're all identical as far as the copies go. You will have 2 units. You will have an A unit, A1, 2, 3, and 4, and you will have a B unit, B1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to cut these 4 out and these 4 out, and then we're going to start the process of adding our fabric and trimming and sewing and adding fabric. It's pretty fun. I will probably just do the 1 for you as I go along, the 1, 2, 3, 4, but you just do it for all these pieces. All right. So I'm just going to take a simple ruler and just rough cut my pattern out away from the 1/4-inch dotted line. That's the 1/4-inch line. This solid line is the lines we're going to be sewing on. And this line happens to be 6 inches. If you take a ruler, you can definitely measure that this goes from 1 right over to the 6. So when you're making your copies, please be sure that that very first one is not increased or decreased, but it really hits that 6. Okay, so let's trim away a little more of this extra paper, and we'll get rid of some of this, and we're just going to cut the units in half. Any ruler's fine. It's not a... Okay, right between the 2 units. We got a little extra here you can get rid of, whatever you like. All right. Oh, you will need a bucket. A trash bin. There is a lot of extra pieces that we're going to be cutting off. Paper will be pulling off at the end. So let's get started. So let's take A. I'll put B aside. Oops, I'll take this away. I'll take the A. And what we're going to do is all these are exactly the same. I have A1 in the exact same position. The object of paper piecing is to sew on these lines. This will always be up while we're sewing. We are creating the block underneath with the right side of the fabric facing up. So wrong side of fabric to wrong side of paper. This will be the right side of the paper, and you know the right and wrong side of fabric. Okay, with that said, we're going to start with the one area, and we're going to go in progression, always 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And if I have 4 pieces, I'll do the A1, 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 A1 for as many as I have. I'll even do B1, B1, B1 on the other ones as well. It just kind of reiterates the same shape over and over and over again. All right, so I'm going to take my glue stick. A is the number 1 spot is the easiest place to go. So on the wrong side of this paper, we're going to place our glue in the corners so that our piece of fabric is going to stick to it. So I know where I need to put them. So what I like to do is actually look up into the light, and you probably won't be able to catch this. But I can see the line through here, and I'm going to put the glue in each of these corners. So there's one, right here's the other, and right here's the other. All right, so that's all within that. The next thing we're going to do is put this with the writing down and go ahead and take our A piece, which is our rectangle, and we're going to place it right on that glue. Okay, so when we hold this piece up in the air, we're going to notice the shadow behind it being our fabric, and that shadow of the fabric needs to extend beyond the solid lines 1/4 inch. So you can see that this side is a little shy, and this side has a lot of excess. So we're going to take our fabric and just slide it over a little bit. Okay, let's do that. This way, right? All right. Let's do it. It's hard to hold it way up. How's that? That's better. Okay. So I have a lot of excess on this side. I could actually bring my piece down a little bit, but I do have 1/4 inch between this solid line and the edge of my fabric. So that one's okay. I'll actually bring this one down a little bit more. Oops. All right. Next one, and you just progressively do these over and over. You find the back of it, mark it with your glue, stick your piece on. All right. So let's continue with this piece. So from now, that's it for the one unit. Just making sure the one piece of fabric covers that section completely. That's the key. So from now on, we're going to get ready for the next section, section 2. So we're going to trim our fabric from section 1. So this is where you take your cardstock. You place your cardstock, an index card, something you might get in the mail, on the line between 1 and 2. Always putting your card on top of the lower number. Okay? See, because if I had put it here and I pressed over here, I would cut all my fabric away, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep the fabric there. So we're going to cover the one section, and we're going to put this line right on the line that goes between 1 and 2, and we're going to just fold it over right on that cardstock. So we're going to take our add-a-quarter ruler, and the add-a-quarter actually has a little lip on it, And that lip is going to be our guide along the cardstock to give us a very even 1/4 of an inch trim. All right, so I'm going to put that on. I'm going to take my add a 1/4, and I'm just going to butt that little lip on the 1/4 right up against the cardstock and trim away the excess where 1 was. Okay? So far, so good. So now we're going to add number 2. So number 2 is these black rectangles. And again, we have our 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to go ahead and place our 1/4 of an inch right together. And don't forget, they're right sides together. And if you're not sure where to place it, go ahead and guess the first time. It's perfectly fine. We're going to open this up, and what I like to do is pin it on that line between 1 and 2. So my pin goes in and out right along the line of 1 and 2, because I'm going to pretend like this is where I'm sewing, because we are sewing on the solid lines. Okay, once I have my pins in place, I can go ahead, I can flip my number 2 piece over, hold it up to the light. Okay. When we're holding it up to the light, we want to make sure that this shadow is extending way beyond a 1/4 of an inch of our number 2 area. And here it is way over here on this side. So we certainly have hit that right on the mark. All right. Once we pin and we flip to check, we're going to take it over to our sewing machine. What I've done is I put on an open toe foot. The open toe allows me to see the line, sew on the line, and I'm not worried about a 1/4 of an inch or anything because I have it, lined up in the back, but it doesn't matter. So here's my pin. I'm going to start outside of that seam allowance. Remember that dotted line is our seam allowance, so we want to start just outside the seam allowance. I want to line this up to come straight through on the solid line between 1 and 2. I've also taken the length of my stitch and brought it down a little bit because that helps pierce the paper and helps the paper rip away later. All right, so we'll just go ahead. I'm sewing right on that line, and again, we want to come out this side just beyond the dashed line. So when you get to the end here, you're not sure exactly which way to go, but you're going to follow your pin for the most part, and you're just going to sew straight through that seam allowance. All right. We're going to take it to the iron. And we're going to flip all of our pieces toward the higher number. So we just added number 2, so we're going to press this toward number 2. I'm just going to keep repeating myself as we add 3 and 4. Okay? So 2 is done. Okay, we're going to flip it over. We're going to take our cardstock. We're going to put it on the lower number, which is number 2. And we're going to fold the higher number, which is number 3, on top of it, right on that line. We're going to take our add a 1/4, and that little ridge is going to sit right up against the cardstock. Trim it away. And add the number 3 piece. Okay, which is this light rectangle. All right, so if I lined that up in the middle, I know when that flipped up, it's pretty much going to cover this entire section, but I still want to pin it and check it. Pinning it also helps when I get over to the sewing machine and my pieces aren't going to slide on me. It takes a little extra time, but I think it's worth it. All right, so I pinned on the line between 2 and 3. I'm going to take my piece, fold it back and hold it up to the light. I just want to make sure that my light piece of fabric extends, I don't know if you can see that can't see that really well, that it extends just past that 1/4 inch all the way around that section, and it's great. So let's go ahead and sew it. So it's back together. I start outside of the seam and start toward that, through the seam allowance, right on the line. Follow that line nice and straight through the other seam allowance on the other side. So they should all be extending beyond the seam allowance. Okay? And we're going to press it again toward the higher number, number 3. So up we go, give that a good press. Okay. All right, let's get the next one ready. So now fabric covers number 3. Time to add number 4. So I put my cardstock on the lower number and flip number 4 on top. Grab my add a 1/4, stick it next to the cardstock and trim away the excess. Okay. Now we're going to add the last piece, which is number 4. And this is the funny one. This is the one I always twist. So if I want it like this, I need to put it like this. Because when I flip this up, this point is going to be with this point. But where along this piece of number 4 do I place it? Well, let's just give it a shot. Let's just put it in the center and see what happens. All right. So again, we're going to pin on the line between 3 and 4. We're going to flip it, we're going to hold it up to the light, and we're going to make sure that this covers. It's a little bit of an angle, so maybe I could push it this way, but if I've cleared it, I'm going to keep it. So let's take a look. It's pretty close, but I'll keep it. So here's my 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can see the fabric behind it. It still covers a 1/4 inch all the way around. That's good. So let's sew that last one. Well, flip it back. It's got to be down. Outside the seam allowance. Aim for the line, the pin, and just go ahead and sew right on that line and outside the seam allowance. A couple more stitches. We're going to press it to number 4, and then we're going to trim it. So this whole entire piece, I know it looks pretty funny, but here's the lines and our seam allowances, and we need to trim that down. So we can take pretty much any ruler and trim it right on that dashed line. Okay. You're going to do this to all 8 pieces, 4 of the A's and 4 of the B's. All right, so here's our A unit all paper piece. So when you get 2 of those, let's try. Okay, so when you get 2 of these, you're going to have an A unit and a B unit. But the most important thing when you put these two together is that you line up this piece right here. So I kind of hold my fingers. I can even put a pin in the intersections through here and out here because I know exactly where my fabric is because I have my seams. I can see where they are. Once I get these two together, then I can go ahead and pin along the way and sew it on the line. Okay, so we're going to put our B units together with our A units, and when we sew that, our black line is the only, really it's a little off a little bit, but it's the only thing that we're really checking for. Okay. Once we get the units together, the A's and B's, we're going to rip off all the paper. We're going to press this open. We're going to rip off our paper, which is always a lot of fun, but it does come off pretty easy. Okay, and give it one final press, and then we're going to put our 4 units together. So this is one AB unit, and you should have 4. All right. So as we rip that and we repress that, that's really all there is to it. So a couple of announcements real quick. So November sampler kits will be available this Friday, November 12th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Bring your finished October kit to get your November kit free, of course. We have a couple new classes coming up. We have the Twister Tote that Heidi just signed up for. And we also have Jerry's Welcome Home wall hanging or table runner, however you want to use it. Watch your emails. We've sent a couple Black Friday specials out. I think the one that everybody's most interested in is the instant $6 rebate for every $20 that you purchase. Of course, sale items cannot be combined, and this sale is from November 11th through November 30th. Okay, at the bottom of your directions for November's kit, I have mentioned a little bit about 2022's block of the month. It will be in person, and it will be Thursday nights and Saturday morning only. And there's a couple other things that you don't need to attend the class, but you do need to show your block. We're giving you to the end of the month to bring your block in to get your free kit. I will still be doing the video, so you still have that to fall back on. I hope that helps. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.